Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and some fancy dancing or possible obfuscation or possible lying that he's doing in connection with what I repeat, as I said already, is the most serious or mind boggling kind of security breach I've ever seen, if it's as it's been portrayed. And it looks as if it is as has been portrayed, and that's per the new revelations just this morning from Jeff Goldberg, editor in chief of The Atlantic. Okay, so 2 hours before an attack in Yemen, there's a signal chat that somehow the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic is included in. Also, in that, well, it's total high-level stuff. It's chief of staff from the White House, the vice president of the United States, the director of national security, Stephen Miller, who seems to be, in this area, de facto president. And they're talking. This comes out, and Jeff Goldberg, says, there are all kinds of things in there, including operational details, but in an excess of caution or patriotism, he doesn't publish the real nuggets of them. He just lets people know. And so how does Hegseth handle it? In classically, Trumpian, nasty way, a two-prong attack. He first trashes Jeffrey Goldberg, a really, eminent figure in the national journalism circles. He is the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, possibly the premier magazine for this kind of stuff in the country. Hegseth comes out and says he's discrediting. He basically tries to make it out that he's lying about this. A little bit imprudent and chancy, but he does that. But it becomes quickly clear that there's really a lot more to this, and you see real concern from members of Congress, including Republican members. So we had this little dance yesterday in Congress where Tulsi Gabbard and a few, well, we've had in general the mantra embraced by Donald Trump, originated from Pete Hegseth and embraced by Donald Trump and his chief of staff, saying basically no classified information was leaked in this chat. Seems extremely far-fetched to me when I heard it because I'm not a total expert in classified information, but I've been involved in certain ones, and you don't need a advanced degree from West Point to know that details about an upcoming operation, that's as classified as it gets. That from the beginning of the history of warfare, enemies who have been able to possess that information have just completely laid waste to the other side. This was 2 hours before we did the attack. Imagine if Yemen or Houthis there get information, what they could have done to not just completely defeat the operation, but to the extent service members are involved, just total avoidable bloodshed and tragedy. Okay, so it sure seemed like, what? No classified information? And now we're at the point of getting to the bottom of it. Hegseth has sort of been pinned and is wriggling like a lizard on a bulletin board with a pin through it. But he's again saying this, and it seems far-fetched. But what came out at the hearing yesterday was obviously a very legalistic distinction by Tulsi Gabbard and others about a certain kind of intelligence information versus the classified information that Hegseth was putting out there in the Signal chat. And when the right questions finally were asked, You had Gabbard and others saying, well, that you have to ask the Department of Defense about, that you have to ask Secretary Hegseth about. And so it seemed something really fishy and squirrely. Can it be both fishy and squirrely? I think so. Was going on. And there was some weird distinction that was being relied on, and that possibly because as the sort of, in national intelligence terms, owner of the information, Hegseth could have declassified it. Of course, why would he do it? It's so incredibly high security risk kind of info. But did he do something tricky after the after the operation had finished and declassify? So when he today says brassily and Trump echoes him, and the chief of staff, the press spokesperson echoes them, is it really based on some very misleading kind of legalistic distinction? Maybe, because, and this is the big development of today in this potentially burgeoning scandal, Jeff Goldberg said, okay, you're calling me a lying sack, and you're saying there was nothing classified here. I'm going to publish. There's all this information about the show, the operational details. I'm just going to publish it. It's all now. In the past, I didn't want to do it out of a surfeit of caution, but now that it's a big public controversy, I want to do it. Do you object? Is what he first said to the administration. And, for the administration, a tricky position because there's nothing classified. It's all benign. But are they going to say we don't object? So in a classic double speak, the chief of staff, the press spokesman, I think it was, one of the, the spokesperson came out and said, well, there's nothing classified, but, it is a sensitive discussion, and no, we don't consent to your publishing it. He did it anyway, and really, he's totally justified. He kept out the name, though, the one thing he kept out, continued to keep out, was the name of an asset, and that's something that can do real harm, obviously, to the asset. He kept it out, but otherwise, he put in the actual quotes, and all this stuff comes from Hegseth, and we're talking about, 12:15 ET, F-18's launch, first strike package. 13:45, trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Known location should be on time. Strike drones launch. Again and again. Strike drones on target. The first bombs will definitely drop. More to follow. We are currently clean on operational security. Godspeed to our warriors. And then the Vice President J.D. Vance says, I will say a prayer for victory. Does that sound like not operational information to you about a ongoing or soon to happen military operation? The very soul of what is supposed to be classified, it is. And Hegseth, who in another administration, even one with a majority of Republicans in Congress, right away there'd be an investigation already opened now in the FBI for a possible criminal violation of the Espionage Act, which you can violate with just given the nature of what it's protecting, with just a grossly negligent standard, which this really seems to have been, and God knows if he's, how long he's been doing it and using Signal. It's a, complete scandal. And of course, remember, we're talking about the most inexperienced Secretary of Defense, I think, ever, not to mention a flaming asshole who, as shown again by the way he takes off after Goldberg rather than, answering with some kind of credibility a really serious question to the American people. So this isn't going away. Seems really clear that operational details were revealed, even in the very safe spot where Trump tyrannically controls both houses of Congress. There's just, I think, too much stuff here for, Democrats could figure out a way to make trouble. I think he's far from out of the woods. A normal Secretary of Defense probably would have to resign. And, and this guy came in with huge doubts. Anyway, But he's gonna, I think, we're gonna figure out what's the truth about his claim that nothing classified was in the chat, and I think it's going to be something highly technical, legalistic, and unsatisfying. The fact of the matter is, this guy revealed over an open Signal chat, including with somebody there in Russia who gets everything. If you're in Russia, doesn't matter. It's just the assumption they own you, whatever's on your phone, etc. Of a military operation 2 hours before. It is an absolute head-spinning violation of classified procedures, the Espionage Act, and the like. And we haven't heard the end of it yet. Talk to you later.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.